I realize this is a huge benefit to being a man, but I think it also depends on other factors like where you live and what you look like. For example, I am average in every regard physically, and the places I have lived have also been average in every way. I don't ever find myself afraid of other people doing anything to me, mostly because no one really bothers me. I don't look wealthy, so people can tell they wouldn't gain anything from harassing me. I don't go out of my way looking for trouble either. I am basically invisible. If someone approaches me, it's usually just street people asking for money or something random, and I simply ignore them. If they stay, I shake my head telling them no and move away. The only times I feel danger are if someone pulls a weapon on me and makes threats or actually attacks me. This has only happened when I was with an ex who had criminal friends. Other times are in bad neighborhoods or foreign countries I am not familiar with, when I get a bad feeling like I should probably leave. I don't know if this is more a testament to how safe cities are in America or how safe my specific area is. We have prostitutes, people with substance abuse issues, and homeless people where I live, and they seem fine being out late. I'm not sure if it's being a man, or a combination of all those factors and more. Around what general area are you located, for example, the South, Midwest, or the United Kingdom? Is it a big city or a small town? I am surprised to find that so many people feel unsafe. I thought it would be the opposite. Story 1. Men are more likely to be randomly attacked in the streets, while women are more likely to be attacked at home. There are pros and cons to being a man or woman, and this is one of the cons of being a man. Men are more likely to be victims of random violence, but how likely depends entirely on where you are. There are many upper-scale neighborhoods where you can walk the block every night without issue. I live in a big city where, no matter where I go, I remain alert. Full disclosure, I have never had any serious run-ins, so such incidents are very rare regardless of gender. Story 2. I hate the idea that being a man is enough to make you safer at night. I have been attacked by random strangers in public on 3 separate occasions. The worst time resulted in a broken nose and damage to my eye that has left me seeing black spots permanently. As a man, you are more likely than a woman to be the victim of assault in a public space. The idea that we are safer is not based in reality. Before anyone starts, the sex of the attackers is irrelevant. People only ask to dismiss or downplay my and other victims' experiences. Story 3. I realize this is a huge benefit to being a man. You mean the benefit of knowing that men are more often victims of street violence such as assault and robbery? Story 4. Depends on where I am. Some parts of my city are pretty safe while others are not. However, I am always alert to make sure nobody tries anything randomly. I have had people try to rob me before, so I make sure nobody catches me off guard. Story 5. I realize this is a huge benefit to being a man, but I think it also depends on other factors as well, like where you live and what you look like. I don't ever find myself being afraid of other people doing anything to me. Well, as you said, it mainly depends on where you live. In fact, men are more likely to be assaulted by strangers. So it is not a privilege of being a man to walk alone at night. But you could also say we are more assaulted because we have this privilege and are more likely to walk alone at night. In that year, men were more likely than women to be victims of the most serious forms of physical assault, levels 2 and 3, and have a weapon used against them. Men were almost twice as likely to be the victims of assault level 2 than women, with 215 versus 114 per 100,000. Though aggravated assault level 3 occurs much less frequently than the less serious forms of assault, the rate of aggravated assault for men is over 3 times greater than that of women, with 18 versus 5 per 100,000. Young men under the age of 18 are 1.5 times more likely to be physically assaulted than young girls. Male victims were most often physically assaulted by a stranger or someone outside the family. In 2008, men were the victims of 80% of all reported attacks by strangers. Men were more likely to be robbed than women. They were victims in 65% of robberies in 2008. Source: Official Canada Government Site. Story 6. Maybe it's growing up in less safe neighborhoods, but I'm always somewhat on guard for anything. Sometimes people are just crazy, entitled, or inattentive. Danger can happen in the typical sense you mentioned or can result from those behaviors. Regarding threats like being mugged, I've avoided them as an adult, but there were a few situations I'm fairly certain could have been dangerous. I usually remove myself or do something to improve the situation, such as putting distance between us, changing direction, moving to a more public place, or just turning around because something felt off. There is also non-traditional danger. Most recently, I was walking in a parking lot when a woman pulled out dangerously fast. I was lucky enough to dodge out of the way quickly. A man and his family yelled at the driver after she nearly hit me, also commenting on how well I dodged. Overall, I feel relatively safe moving about, but I'm always on guard because I don't trust anyone. Whether to prevent a crime against me or to avoid someone doing something stupid or selfish that could hurt me. Story 7. I'm a tradesman, so I look strong. I couldn't fight my way out of a paper bag, but I used two of my most important tools in my tool bag: situational awareness. When I am out for an evening with my wife, I scan the street a block ahead looking for potential problems. If I see a group of young men looking for trouble, I casually cross the street to avoid them. Neither they nor my wife ever know. If I am not able to avoid them, then I use the nod. I look the biggest, most intimidating person in the group in the eye and give him a nod. I am saying, "I see you. I acknowledge your leadership in the group. I am passing through your territory. I have no need for what is yours. I am not challenging you." It is amazing how much can be expressed in a nod. I think this only works because I am an older man. I would not try this as a 20-year-old. Story 8. I do not feel safe at all, and I think most men feel the same. We just pretend that we are not scared to play the strong person for the people around us. Story 9. As a man, I usually feel safe walking alone. I do not look wealthy or threatening, so people leave me alone. I only feel uneasy in unfamiliar places or obviously dangerous areas. Story 10. I feel fine at my height and weight, but I will not let my wife or my smaller male friend do it at night. I have literally taken a 45-minute trip across the city to accompany him when he needed to walk somewhere that would have taken 30 minutes at night. If I cannot be with him, then I have him keep his location on and sometimes his FaceTime on, or we talk on the phone the whole time. If we are out at night, I walk slightly behind him if there are lots of people around, but if it is a rather safe place, I walk a little bit in front. Maybe I am overprotective, but he thinks it is funny. Nobody has ever approached him with bad intentions when I am around. But when I do see someone unfamiliar approaching to talk for whatever reason, I instinctively get directly in front of him and do all the talking. Story 11. I live in one of the safest cities in the world. I took a trip to the United States once and felt unsafe in New York. That feeling was the fear of a stranger in a foreign place. I have not experienced enough of New York to make an informed judgment on how much danger I was in. Story 12. I do. I've lived in big cities my whole life until a couple of years ago and have never had any incidents. I've been called derogatory names by people driving by when leaving gay bars, but no one has threatened me or said anything to my face. I'm lucky in that I'm fairly large, 6 feet 4 inches, 200 pounds. I know that doesn't matter against a weapon, but generally criminals will pick on someone they perceive as weak. I also always knew which neighborhoods to avoid and to mind my own business, though I have helped people in trouble a few times because it upsets me to see anyone being harassed or bullied. Story 13. The significant challenge of being a man is a higher likelihood of being a victim of street violence, excluding sexual assault. An average man has an advantage over an average woman, but only to that extent. A criminal typically has either weapons or numbers, sometimes both. It does not matter if you are male when someone pulls a knife on you. However, society expects men to be a man and not show fear, even if they are scared. If anyone claims they are not afraid to go to the most dangerous part of their city at 2:03 a.m., they are either lying or foolish. Story 14. I live in a very rural area in the mountains, definitely not a city. I feel completely safe in my area. I have been to other cities, but I never felt unsafe walking around at night. Story 15. Generally speaking, yes. I feel safe almost anywhere at night, even if alone. I'm 6 feet 3 inches tall, 250 pounds, and usually carry a knife. But am I any good at fighting or self-defense if I ever was in a fight? Not really. I have some martial arts skills from several years ago, but still, I think most guys watch too much mixed martial arts and significantly overestimate their abilities in a fight. I have done a lot of international travel, and I would say the most dangerous place I have been at night is definitely Mexico City, with Acapulco a close second. Tijuana gets a bad reputation but is actually not that bad. Most of mainland China is pretty sketchy too. What scares me the most about China in a general sense is how desensitized mainland Chinese people are to death or trauma. I once saw a man fall off a skyscraper under construction to his death. It amazed me how unfazed people were. I also once saw a woman get hit by a car in a busy city with no one calling an ambulance or doing anything. Mainland China is probably the most soulless place on earth. I have zero confidence in police or emergency medical services saving you there. Hong Kong and Macau are fine. I have never been to anywhere in Thailand or Vietnam as bad as mainland China. At least in Mexico City, they call the police and emergency medical services if something happens to you. Story 16. On a Friday or Saturday night in any town, I am on high alert. I have been the victim of unprovoked attacks by intoxicated individuals. This motivated me to go to the gym to build muscle. I worry for my two sons and keep telling them to get strong and fit. The best advice I have is to try your best to avoid higher-risk places and situations, such as the taxi rank, cash machine, and Main Street at closing time. However, be prepared. Make sure you can run or strike hard and fast if necessary. Story 17. Fairly comfortable with it. I used to walk home from work every night at midnight for years. However, people I know have been mugged, sexually assaulted, or randomly attacked at night in my area. I usually don't feel too worried, but I pay attention to what other people I see are doing. I make sure to listen for voices and other sounds. I know my way around well enough to avoid potential trouble by taking an alternative route. Story 18. I am cautious. I carry a concealed firearm and carefully scan my surroundings, which might make me appear nervous. As you can imagine, I am very selective about when and where I walk. Story 19. I'm cautious but generally feel safe. I have walked alone at night in cities many people consider very dangerous, and they can be. However, if you move with purpose and confidence, do not ignore or engage, use basic common sense about where you should and should not go, and do not look like a target, you will often be okay. For regional context, I have lived in Atlanta and Memphis. Story 20. Depends on where I am. Unfamiliar part of town? Not particularly safe. The bad part of town? Unsafe. Desolate stretch of country road after my car broke down and I cannot get signal for some reason? Not safe at all. My neighborhood? Yeah, pretty safe. Middle of the woods? Only slightly more unsafe than during the day. Story 21. Where I live now is very rural, so you are not likely to see anyone in the daytime, never mind at night. Around where I live, I feel safe most of the time. In towns and especially cities, I never feel safe, especially at night. I have lived in 3 cities and always stick to well-lit areas, check my pockets, and have a route planned. I do not text anyone mostly because no one is going to check. If I got home safe, I never wear headphones and keep an eye out for people who might be following me. It rarely made the news when a person my age or anyone in general was attacked, and when it did, it was a minor story. However, I know one person was stabbed and killed just down the road from where I was living. I am always aware that I cannot rely on help if I am attacked, so it is better to be prepared. Story 22. I am in the United States, but I am rarely concerned. My last house was in a not-so-great area. My girlfriend says it has lots of character. I never worried about walking to or from my car at night. The thing is, most violent crime is committed by somebody the victim knows. Truly random crime is rare. Story 23. It depends entirely on where at night. In my neighborhood, it is 100% safe. In a train car with only one other person who obviously listens to rap or hip-hop, I will run to the next car, or if not, wait for the next train. Thank you very much. Story 24. 90% of the places I have been, I have felt safe walking around at night. I am not a big guy, but I walk confidently and do not look like a victim. I am also not especially scared of homeless people, the mentally ill, or drug users. Someone yelling at Nobody on the other side of the street does not make me feel unsafe. I have lived in San Jose, Denver, and Chicago, and have visited dozens of other cities, almost never feeling unsafe. I have walked home late at night from bars countless times and never had any real issues. The only places I have truly felt unsafe were in the Dominican Republic, Buenos Aires, and, randomly, Florence. Part of that is just not having a great feel for what a safe versus unsafe neighborhood looks like in foreign countries, so I err on the side of caution. Story 25. I am cautious in Los Angeles. There are many homeless, psychotic, and drug-addicted individuals. I stay out of dangerous areas, but home invasions have increased significantly compared to years ago. I keep something on me just in case. Story 26. Not that safe. I mean, it is not just drug users and potential violent attackers I have to worry about. It is animals as well. Sure, I have never heard of a wolf attacking anyone in my area, but there are plenty of large dogs that could be roaming about. I do not care how much of a man you are. A vicious animal is a threat. Story 27. The overwhelming violence against men is from a stranger. It does not really matter what time of day. Men are usually the ones targeted in violent crimes. For women, the opposite is true. The overwhelming violence against women is from men they are already intimate with, not from strangers. Story 28. Between being a man and growing up in a tough inner-city neighborhood, I feel reasonably safe. I have good awareness, and that is like 99% of being safe. As far as being a man goes, I figure the only thing anyone would want from me is money. In the year 2025, it has been about 15 years or more since I have carried any actual cash on me. Stealing my credit card will not do any good since it will be canceled within 15 minutes or so of being taken. Even if it is not, there are protections in place, so I will not be responsible for charges made by a thief. Story 29. Men kill men. Not exclusively, but statistically significantly. No, I do not have trouble walking the city center of Manchester at night, but I know to avoid Piccadilly Gardens as well as a number of the back alleys. I am 6 feet tall and do not look intimidating, even with my natural resting face scowl. Now, if I go 2 miles in either direction, I am at a lot more risk as I exit the city center. Story 30. It depends on where I am. There are 3 central areas I tend to visit. One is a quiet town near the job site. I feel safe there, but not completely safe because it feels too diverse, and sometimes I have the lingering feeling that someone might do something to me out of hate. The other town is very run down and usually has a lot of loiterers hanging around. I feel less safe there. While there are people who look and relate to me, I still don't feel safe, especially since I am short with a resting face. The area where I live feels the safest. Story 31. I live in the suburbs of a mid-sized city in the Midwest, and I am an average-sized man. I honestly cannot recall an instance when I have felt unsafe in public. Maybe I am lucky in that regard. Story 32. I live in a safe suburban neighborhood and am a fairly big and fit man, so I feel very safe since I am unlikely to be targeted. I walk around with headphones in all the time without any fear. Story 33. I mean, there are huge factors involved, like where I am, but I generally feel safe. I would need to be in a fairly shady neighborhood or environment to feel unsafe. Safe enough that it is not a top 3 concern usually. Story 34. I grew up in New York City at a time when it was still gritty. I learned to always be aware of my surroundings. Overall, as a male, I always felt pretty safe. Now, as an older man in the suburbs, I am very afraid of teenagers. Story 35. I feel safe. I am aware of the statistics that say going out alone at night could very easily get me killed. I just accept that there is not really anything to do about that other than stay indoors, and I would rather not let fear make decisions for me. As far as being a benefit goes, my female friends have said that while the risk is greater for men to face random violence in the streets, we at least know that if it does happen, we end up in a hospital, walking home, or dead. They may face human trafficking or rape, which helps reassure us that we will be okay in the end. They have also said that because I am a man, my odds of protecting myself are better, but I do not think that really holds any water. Story 36. I have always felt safe no matter where or the time of day. I actually prefer walking at night because it is calm and private. Story 37. Where I live, you are more likely to encounter a wild animal at night than another human. We regularly visit my sister in a medium-sized town, and I frequently take the dogs out or walk to the convenience store at night there. I have never had any reason to feel unsafe. I am an average-sized man, but I have some training and maintain good situational awareness. Story 38. Just depends on the circumstance. The idea that a man feels more secure simply because of gender in a gun culture never made sense. If it is dark and you are in the wrong part of town, everyone is alert. Story 39. I have my concealed carry weapon license. My buddies Smith and Wesson ensure I am never alone in public. In my neighborhood, I would walk anywhere in the middle of the night. 20 miles south in Minneapolis, you could not catch me out alone at night, even with my sidearm. Story 40. Maybe because I am oblivious, I never felt in danger. I used to live in Florida and walked around at night. I casually noticed that there were bars on some neighborhoods. That's when I realized, wait, do I live in a dangerous neighborhood? Once, I was walking home drunk and without a phone at around 2 or 3 a.m. I noticed someone casually following me. When he turned, I turned. I quickly ran to someone's house who I knew lived nearby. I do not know what would have happened if I had kept walking alone. Although I was on a main road, I shouldn't have felt safe just because it was a main road. I played it safe. Story 41. I feel relatively safe, but I also live in a friendly neighborhood. I still avoid people. I'm thinly built. Being a man does not mean it is perfectly safe to be out at night. Story 42. Less worried about getting mugged, more worried about someone intoxicated wanting to start trouble for no reason. Story 43. Not that safe. I have been confronted many times by random crazy people and have had to talk my way out of situations or act quickly without thinking. You never know when it is going to happen or which time will be the time you actually get hurt. Story 44. I did get anxious walking home alone when I was living in a rough neighborhood. Now, living in the suburbs, I am completely at ease. The only other time I got nervous was walking through a market in Cairo at night and ending up in a back room somehow. Story 45. I usually carry my phone when I am out, but in general, I avoid crime-prone areas, especially at night. Story 46. I am usually cautiously carefree. I walk alone but try to be aware of encirclement, and usually only in familiar areas. Story 47. I don't know. It depends. I own a gun and a license to carry, so I generally feel okay. I live near a couple of dangerous areas, but I'm not directly in those areas. When I'm in my hometown, I feel the safest, not because of familiarity, but because the area is generally safe. If I were to go to the city, I'd feel less safe. However, I carry, so I'm not anxious. I keep my head on a swivel and stay alert at all times. Walking alone at night probably isn't advisable in some of these areas, though. Story 48. I feel very safe. Statistically, men are far more likely to be robbed, stabbed, shot, or otherwise killed than women. However, it seems that no one, including men, is concerned about this. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.